Hi, this is Rebecca Miskin from Night Owl, and you are listening to the Three Geeks podcast.
Hello, everybody. Welcome to a Three Geeks PVD collaboration. Jason and John here, and we got Seth, the man behind Class Action Park. Seth, how you doing?
I'm good. One of the men, my co-director Chris, I also have to, make sure he's acknowledged it. But thank you very much. Great to be here.
No problem.
Real quickly, I read that you're an expert in pinball. Is that true?
We could do a full podcast about that if you want to later. But yeah, I could talk to James.
Okay, then I just have to ask a real quick question. Then, when you play pinball, do you ever play the Who's Pinball Wizard behind you while you play?
Yeah, of course. No, come on, man, that's weird. No, I love pinball. So, okay, before we go into this here, I'll just sell you on pinball right now, so you don't think
Sure.
I'm too weird. Okay, here's why pinball is interesting. Pinball machines were illegal in most of the United States for 3.5 decades, and very few people know that today. And I just think that's so strange and fascinating. This thing was illegal until the mid-1970s in New York, in Chicago, Los Angeles, most major American cities. And today people are like, it's this American, this apple pie, totally harmless game.
Huh.
Yeah.
I'll be damned. I learned something today, Jason.
Yeah.
I had no idea.
Yeah, so I just love this idea. It's this game you walk up to, and it's just like a ball moving around. And today you're like, this is the most harmless thing it could be. But at some point in history, people looked at these things and were just scared of them. They thought they were evil and had to be destroyed and banned. In New York, there's actually a pinball squad in the NYPD dedicated to going on literal like prohibition-style raids, rooting out pinball machines, and then like smashing them for cameras as if it was bottles of, barrels of whiskey during the 1920s.
It's nice to know that they still went after the big issues back then like they do now.
Yeah, absolutely. I am the prize people. Yeah.
That's a great segue though, Jason, because one of my first questions I had for Seth before we start talking about the movie is that, Seth, you've done a lot of stuff. You have been a commentator on numerous different news programs, from CNBC to G4 to Rocket Boom, which, side note, I haven't thought about Rocket Boom in forever.
Yeah.
Also, you've had columns in Business Week and Men's Journal, and you were an editor for Maxim. Do you mind giving your opinion on the state of American journalism right now?
Oh man, it's the crap, ain't it? No, it's kind of interesting. One of the reasons I think I kind of am making documentaries now is I kind of view it as one place in which we kind of have the freedom to do really interesting things in journalism. Like the magazine world, the newspaper world, the online publishing world are all in massive states of just distress. Like nobody knows what they're doing, how to make money, how to survive. But for some reason, people are watching a ton of documentaries. And I kind of view a documentary like a long form magazine article, like a way to tell a story and do some investigation and reveal some things to the world. So for me, this is journalism, and journalism always is changing and evolving as media forms come and go. And right now we're in kind of a dark period in terms of the media landscape, but I see some glimmers of hope. And one of them is, the documentary space.
Cool.
Absolutely.
Okay.
I got a question. So this is your first documentary. What made this the subject you wanted to tackle first?
Yeah, it's the first feature documentary I've made, but it's not the first thing I've done on Action Park. I've been obsessed with this story. I mean, I went there as a kid, and if you go there as a kid, you're obsessed with it. It doesn't leave you. It's there. But I've been writing about Action Park in various ways and capacities for more than a decade now, and I made a short documentary about it with my friends Matt and Anthony 7 years ago in 2013. And so this is me kind of returning to the topic, because after we put the short out, basically all these people started emailing me, calling me, whatever, telling me that they had their own Action Park stories that they needed to share. And so I spent a lot of time talking to people, investigating, collecting sources, collecting stories, and that's what eventually became this movie. So it's a little bit more organic than me saying, I want to make a documentary. What should I make a documentary about?
It really shows the difference between the 80s parenting style and now's parenting style.
Sure. Absolutely. Yeah, it's a big part of
no,
it.
it's fine.
Yeah.
It bounced around a little bit.
Yeah, I mean, we all have a few head injuries, I think, from that era. I think that's what's one of the things that's really amazing to me is I don't think younger people, I mean, some certainly do, but I think a lot of younger people aren't super aware about how kids grew up 30 years ago and how different it was. And I think this movie's been kind of a revelation for younger people who are realizing how feral their parents were when they were growing up and how like much they were just running around without any supervision. And I think it's kind of earning some parents like some respect and some points with their kids, which is kind of cool.
Yeah, most definitely. So when you said that when you made your short and the word got around about that, you started getting, lots of emails, lots of phone calls, texts from everybody. Is that how you managed to get some of the wonderful, wonderful cast? Alison Becker, John Hodgman, Chris Gethard. Is that how that came about and they all joined the project?
I mean, it's different for each person, like kind of how they end up there. Like Gethard was actually in the short. I mean, it's 7 years ago.
Oh, okay.
And he stole the show then. He stole the show again. Like he's just so good. Whatever he says is amazing. Becker, I had heard had gone to Action Park, and I was really interested in hearing her story, so we just got in touch with her. Hodgman kind of came in late in the game as our narrator, and I had heard he had gone to Action Park as well. And the minute I heard that, it was like, oh, that's our guy. I'm a huge fan of his work. But more importantly, like if we were going to have a narrator, and early cuts of the movie did not have a narrator. That was kind of a later addition. We realized I think was necessary to just get all that information out there and make the story make sense. Like we had early cuts, but it was really clear that some points weren't really hitting home or weren't as clear as we wanted them to be. And we really wanted to add a narrator. And I want somebody who had a personal association with the park and also somebody who could really straddle the tonal shifts the movie has. Because parts of the movie are like a fun party, rock and roll. And then some parts are very serious, very sad, very somber. And it was kind of tricky to make sure that we got somebody who could surf both of those tones. And Hodgman is somebody who, like the minute I heard he had gone to Action Park, I knew that like he could do that. He just absolutely could. He has both the gravitas and seriousness to handle some parts, but also he's a comedian. He's funny. He can handle the other parts.
It's crazy that they won so many of the lawsuits against them.
Yeah, it was a different time, as we say. I think it's kind of a general rule of the justice system that oftentimes the person who wins is the person who throws the most money at the case or has the bigger and better lawyers. And they were really, Action Park got sued a lot, and they refused to settle. It's very few cases where they settle. The death that we focus on in detail in the park, they did settle on because I think they realized that getting out there in a big way, the true story would not have benefited them. But they did settle for that one, but almost never would they settle. And then if you won a case, you would basically have to have the U.S. Marshals show up at their door to collect. And after we put the movie out, I actually had a number of lawyers reach out to me who worked on cases when they literally had to have the U.S. Marshals show up. And it was really as chaotic as the Marshals showing up with a duffel bag, going from cash register to cash register, filling it up with cash. And as one lawyer told me, then once they got it back to the Marshal's office, the Marshals couldn't release it to them because it was U.S. Marshal property duffel bag. So the guy had to go buy another duffel bag to transfer this cash to. So weird. Yeah.
So you did mention in the documentary that that one case you kind of highlighted for one of the deaths. Yeah. There were 3 other deaths in this.
More than that. More than that.
There really was. There's more than
it was 5 to 6 depending on how you count them. And then there are numerous other deaths that I don't think it's fair to pin on the park because even if 1 million people a year going through this place, some things are going to happen that just kind of happen, And so I think it's really fair to say 5 or 6 were direct results of bribes or negligence.
And did they settle or no? Did they do his magic and get them screwed over, so to speak?
Yeah, for the purposes of the movie, we really wanted to focus on one specific death scenario, death case, to tell that story in detail. The movie really, I don't think it's not about Action Park. It's not about these specific, we could have made it encyclopedic, could have made it a miniseries and told you every detail about every case. But it's really about the times, it's about the emotions, it's about the shift. And we really wanted to focus on one family's story, to tell their story with as much detail as we could. to really serve as, in many ways, like the hangover to the party that the first hour of the movie is. You know, this movie is a movie where we want you to kind of feel uncomfortable and confused. We want to make you laugh and then immediately question your own laughter. And once you got to know these people, the Larson family, and what they'd been through and what they suffered, I think anybody watching the movie would feel very weird about the laughter they had 20 minutes before.
Yeah, most definitely.
So I just found out that Johnny Knoxville made a movie based on your short film,
Correct.
Action Park.
Yeah,
I knew that was a movie, but I didn't know that it had any realism in it at all.
Yeah, his movie's called Action Point, and it was just very loosely inspired by the story of Action Park. It's weird because I feel like the real story's crazier than the Knoxville movie, and it was as far as my understanding, it was inspired by my short, although there was no official connection.
Well, one question that or not really a question, Seth, but one thing that I took away from the documentary, well, one of many things, but the one was how Vernon, New Jersey kind of got just caught up in the spider web that they, you talk about that they couldn't, they embraced this idea of having this giant amusement park there and will be the next Las Vegas, which I always find that to be a very upsetting phrase that I've heard from many people about many towns. And I feel, and maybe I'm wrong, Las Vegas was a once in a million chance that was going to be a success.
And let's just be real. I love Vegas. Do you really want your town to be the next Las Vegas? Like, I mean, there's the good and the bad. It's not all good. Yeah. Sure.
Yeah, but I really was intrigued by the way that you guys took a look at that then eventually Vernon realizes, oh man, we're in too deep and this is not what we bargained for, but like Darth Vader, pray I don't alter the deal further,
Yeah, I mean, to some degree, I don't think the town ever really came to that realization. I mean, today the town is still very local politics in Vernon are absolutely fascinating. Still very, very contentious between the kind of pro-development forces and some of the people in Vernon. It's a very strange town. And this history of Vernon, I mean, Ken Burns could make a mini-series about it, because it's a town that over the decades, a lot of people kind of come in with big promises of development, jobs, and all these things. And sometimes those promises have come through, and sometimes, perhaps more often or not, they have not. Or they've come through for a short period with some negative ramifications on the back end. And I think it's something that we see a lot in America and perhaps elsewhere in the world, which is people get very caught up in the hype of, oh, somebody's gonna build a factory here, somebody's gonna build a casino here, somebody's gonna do something here that's gonna magical effect and turn our town around, not really pausing to take into consideration what the actual effects of that are gonna be.
Yeah.
That's America, man, right?
Yeah, that's the bottom line, dude.
Yeah.
I like the story with the Colorado Rapids ride that they had.
Yeah.
There's no lifeguards in Colorado.
it was so funny. So that guy who told us that, who was the former operations manager, literally, I was asking about, somebody right before him in the movie we had done that interview prior, had basically said like there was no lifeguards. That's right. So I was asking Ed, I was like, somebody said there was no lifeguards. Was that a reason? And he's just like, oh yeah, Gene didn't want any lifeguards. Gene was literally like, there's no lifeguards on the Colorado River. That's his attention to detail and authenticity, I guess, is what you get. So that was a wild ride. That ride there, I mean, when you look at the video of it, it kind of looks like a ride you might find at any number of water parks. Like you're in a raft, you're going down, there's some light rapids. It was really insane. It was a truly nuts ride. When I went to that park as a kid, that was the one that I went on that I think like messed with me the most. I remember getting thrown off of it because it's like you're literally on class 4 rapids and you're just getting banged about. And I got thrown off and kind of trapped underneath the raft. And I remember somebody just reaching out and just pulling me back on and like trying to like save me. It was wild. The ride is still open at the current iteration of the park. It's now called Mountain Creek. Most of the wild rides no longer there. Colorado River Ride is there. But when you ride it, you have to basically wear like a little cross mask because so many people were smashing their faces. So it's open, the rapids are way down, and you have to wear a protective face mask just to keep you from like losing teeth, bruising your face.
I gotta ask. So you've actually been to this park. Did you go on the Cannonball Loop ride?
No, I did not. It wasn't open to the public. You're going to hear a lot, like, millions of people went to Action Park. Most people who went there are going to tell you something along the lines of, we were told it wasn't open that day, because it really wasn't open that much. The widespread story was only open for a couple months in, I think, like the 85 season, but in truth, it was actually open sporadically into the 90s. And what I love about this is, they never got it to work right. Like, they were just continually testing for like years and years, and you're still paying employees $100 bills to test it, as if it was like this problem that could be solved, that they could just figure it out. And I love this idea that, like, this guy was so obsessed with getting this looping water slide to work that for years and years and years, he's still throwing teenagers down there, still holding $100 bills in there, still making tweaks and tinkering with it. I just imagine, I just like to think, like, what did he think would happen if he got to work? Like, that's it, we've won. Like, is the whole thing here just like this like, everything is just for the purpose, the service of getting this looping water slide to work, as if it's like the machine in Contact or something is going to open up a portal. I don't know. Like, what did he think was going to happen? If somebody makes it through, is the Stargate open? Like, what happens?
My favorite Gene story was the cattle prod story.
Yes.
Yeah, I mean, I was like, dude, that is so evil to do to some poor kid, to see him shock that dude, and then the dude sells it like he's dead.
And like, parents are complaining because they think they saw somebody get murdered. I spoke to 3 different people who were there when it happened, and they're all like telling Gene, like, don't do it. And so the guy who told us the story in the movie, Joe, he was sort of the voice of reason, I think, in the operation. And so when he was out of town, that's when Gene did it. He's the kind of guy who, like, and I think we know this of like some of our political leaders, he'll ask people's thoughts. If he doesn't like the answer, he'll just wait till that person's gone and go do it anyway, kind of thing. Like, he doesn't really want to be told no. And he did it. It's not something that they did again, because it wasn't a good idea. Yeah.
Is Gene a genius, or what's your take on Gene?
He's Gene. He's such a complex and weird character that I think he's kind of hard to shake, because everything about him that's loathsome is not unique to him. He was this American archetype. Certainly, he was very creative, perhaps a genius when it came to the single-minded pursuit of skirting rules and of getting wild ideas done. Like, it's something mad about that, something absolutely wild, crazy, and something that, if the stuff he was doing didn't hurt people, it'd be very easy to look back at very romantically. And if he was like a Nikola Tesla type, or somebody who was creating these mad genius inventions, and he didn't care that people were telling him, no, that's impossible, no, you can't do that, we would look back very fondly at him. The problem was, the things he did legitimately hurt people. Mm-hmm. And that, I think, is very confusing to us, because everything else about his story is this is this American archetype that we tend to romanticize. And I think that's very confusing to us. And I think one of the things I want to do with the movie is show sort of the dark side of that American archetype.
I like that when you showed, not to get political, but I like when you showed that Trump was like, I don't even want to mess with this.
Do not. Yeah. We spoke to several employees who were at the park when he dropped by to check things out and talk to them. And this is going to sound bad, but he seemed to gravitate towards the 15-year-old female employees.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
That's what I was told. Yeah.
Let's just move on, shall we?
Yeah.
I mean, that's the only thing that I can say. So, did you happen to have, what was your favorite ride when you went to Action Park?
Yeah, I went there, I was pretty young. And so a lot of the rides were just things that looked too insane and too scary and too dangerous for me, things I wasn't going to touch. And I think that's part of the reason the story of Action Park kind of lives on in my brain the way it does, because I rode some rides and there were many others I wouldn't touch. And then those ones I wouldn't touch, it's like, were they real? Did I imagine that people were doing those things? Was any of this real? And I think part of the drive for the movie was to see, like, were these fantastical contraptions possible? Were they real? The ones I went on, though, I mean, the Colorado River ride was so intense. I went as a young kid, and it really bangs you around. But a lot of kids went that one. I think a lot of kids kind of had a similar experience. I went on the Cannonball Falls, which was freezing cold, the water you jump into, Tarzan swing, freezing cold. You get berated by half of New Jersey just yelling at you because no matter what you do, unless you do some like amazing backflip or you flash them, they love that in Jersey. Anything else, you're done. You're like, get out of Jersey, right, guys? The cliff dive, I think that was too much for me. I was like, I'm not jumping off a 25-foot cliff. But, you know, it was a lot of tube rides. I was basically in the kiddie area, man. Like, I was really young.
Okay.
I was watching. I'm like, yeah, this park is New Jersey all over it.
No, it's the most Jerseyest. It's Jersey of Jersey. It's the Jerseyest thing there is.
I don't think it could have been anywhere else. It wouldn't have made sense in Florida.
No, and it's so weird. It's so neat, like talking to people who grew up in New York and New Jersey area in this period, and just how many of them have memories of this place. I met Senator Cory Booker at an event, you know, several months ago, and he mentioned Action Park, and he had tweeted the short I had made. So I mentioned Action Park to him, and he just instantly lights up and is like, "Let me show you my scars." Starts like lifting up his pant leg to show me his alpine slide scars, which is just awesome. So it's a pretty common experience. It's like it's a whole generation of people from New Jersey who have scars, like physical, literal scars from this place.
Wow, that's awesome. That's amazing.
Yeah.
So Seth, what's next on tap for you? Do you have another project lined up, or you're kind of just?
But you know how it is in terms of like, can't talk about that kind of stuff, you know, in early stages of, you know. But right now, we're just enjoying this. I mean, this has been like, I've been working on Action Park stuff for 10 years or so, and I'm thrilled that we could get the story out there. I'm thrilled we could tell the story, and I'm thrilled that people have taken to it. I think one of the things I'm not gonna say I was surprised about, but I'm pleased about, is that it struck a nerve with people who know nothing about the park, people who aren't from New Jersey or New York. I'm not from New Jersey or New York. People who aren't even from this generation. And I think what has really struck a chord is that people who, you know, they see their own childhoods in this to some degree, because they themselves might have been left to their own devices. Parents opening up the door in the morning and say, "Come back by dinner." Who knows what trouble you're going to get into? So if they weren't going to Action Park, maybe they were, say, like breaking into a factory, breaking into a quarry, diving off a cliff, playing around in the woods, whatever it was. And no cell phones, no anything. Parents having no idea. And Action Park is just like this hyper distilled, gated amusement park version of growing up in the 80s. And I think people are catching on to that and realizing that.
Awesome. Cool. I got to ask, because it is the Three Geeks podcast, and you've dropped a few geeky references. Where do you have stuff that you geek out about?
Pinball, man. Pinball. I could talk all day about pinball. I can show you guys my machines here too. Pinball. I'm on a pinball team. I play not competitive in the way some people do, but casual competitive, we'll say. You know, like bar league style. I do a lot of trivia too. I'm a big trivia guy. And I don't know, man. I like all the fun stuff. What do you guys geek out about?
Everything.
Yeah, of course, yeah. That's a big open-ended question, right? Yeah.
Comics, movies, hockey, pro wrestling.
Yeah, pro wrestling. Who's your favorite wrestler?
My favorite wrestler as a kid was Bruiser Brody.
Awesome. I'm in. I'm sorry, I didn't interrupt you.
No. I was gonna say a lot of people haven't heard of him, but he was the guy that he was the wild man from New Mexico who would like giant hair and beard, and every time I saw him on TV, I thought he was going to kill someone. So I was like, you know, I'm going to watch a man die today. I don't know how I feel about that. You know,
it's ahead of his time. He was the Action Park of wrestlers.
He was.
Yeah,
he was.
They should have just called him the Wild Man from New Jersey. Uncle Gene, the Action Park of wrestlers. There were $100 bills in there. What a great wrestling character that would be. Kind of like a $1 Million Man type thing.
Yes.
Like bribing people with money to do his dirty work for him. You know, like all these teenagers are his Virgil. You know, so it's be fun.
So, Seth, I have one final question for you. How did you become a subject? How did you become a subject of a Wesley Willis song?
Oh, cool. Are you familiar with Wesley? You a fan?
I am.
Yeah. Wesley was a close friend of mine prior to his passing. Yeah. And he wrote songs about most people he knew. It's really that simple. You know, like if he knew you, you'd probably end up as a subject of a song. But Wesley was the best. Miss him. You know, he's a great guy. And I think he's somebody who I hope future generations like discover. And he's somebody who I think is kind of misunderstood, but that's okay. You know, he was a hard guy to get a handle on.
Yeah, most
Holy crap,
definitely.
I knew Wesley Willis.
You,
Sorry, I just
Jason.
Googled him. I used to see him on the Stern Show.
Yeah. Did you ever?
Yeah.
I mean, did you know him or like know of him?
I've seen him on the show a few
Gotcha.
times.
Yeah. Yeah, Wesley's great. Like, what a character he was. I mean, just like a sweet man. He, I have a couple of drawings he made for me that I treasure. But like, what an interesting, troubled, tormented, amazing guy he was. He was somebody who, it's like, is kind of inspirational to be around because he was somebody who you just knew, like, the act of going through the day, he was gonna, within his own head, deal with more crap than I would ever imagine in my lifetime, and still, at the end of the day, find a way to like laugh and smile and joke around and be friendly, and also just be like nice to everybody he met. You know, I think a lot of people who like are going through crap take it out on people, whether they like it or not, like whether they mean to or not. And he was somebody who, no matter how bad his stuff was, he was just really gracious and kind to everybody he met, and like just massive respect for that.
Yeah.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Thank you so much for reaching back out to us, because that was awesome.
Do you have any social media accounts you'd like to plug real quick? Of course, we should say we totally glossed over this. Class Action Park on HBO Max. It's on right now. So you need to
not
go
HBO,
see it.
HBO Max. Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, at Seth Porges with a P, that's SethPorges. And then also at Class Action Park on everything. You can find us there too. Movie's fun. I hope everybody likes it. Hope it, means something to people.
I was never a huge documentary fan until I watched the Mr. Rogers one a few years ago.
Sure.
And that's like my favorite thing to watch now is documentaries. And this
I think
that.
Yeah, I think we're getting a lot of that with this movie because I think it's like such a fun topic, amusement park that never should have existed. Like, it's a world you kind of want to spend time in, is what it is. And I think that a lot of people who have watched the movie, I think maybe we'll get people who watch it more than once, even because it's like it's a world and a time they want to kind of transport themselves back to.
Yeah, cool. Well, Seth, thank you again so much for sitting down and chatting with us tonight. Again, Class Action Park on HBO Max. Follow Seth on social media. And again, thanks, man.
Yeah.
Appreciate it. Anytime.
All Seth's stuff will be in the description of this video and audio. Have a great day.
Thank you.